We're going to go ahead and get started. Yeah. Welcome. It is Tuesday, December 18th, 2018, a little bit after 9 a.m., and this is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Fire Commissioners. Please call the roll.
Let the record reflect Commissioners Glazier, Nimberg, Hara are present, and we have a quorum. Vice President Glazier.
Thank you. Go ahead with the flag salute and the moment of silence.
Please stand, right hand over your heart, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silence in honor of past and present members of the Los Angeles Fire Department who have devoted their lives to the protection of our community.
Okay, thanks, everybody. We will go ahead with Commissioner comments at this time. Dr. Hara?
Okay. So after the last special meeting, and I guess we didn't have a regular meeting in early December, but after the last special meeting that Sunday, I joined Chief Villanueva in the Spirit of San Pedro Holiday Parade. Ordinarily, I bring my granddaughter, but she was under the weather, so she couldn't join us. But Chief Villanueva brought his grandson, so that made up for it. And the Wednesday that followed, I was at the badge promotion ceremony at Hotchkiss, and later that day, I ran into Commissioner Woods Gray at the Getty House, where they were selling various Christmas gifts, and for a lot of nonprofit organizations. And then this past Wednesday, I came to the department holiday breakfast, and it was really great, I thought, in terms of all the raffles that were available, and getting to see a lot of the individuals who make this department so strong.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Nimber?
Thanks, Commissioner Glazier.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy holidays to everyone. Yes, I want to congratulate everybody. I went to the promotional badge ceremony, and that was fantastic. And it was a lot of hard work. And it's really fantastic to see diverse candidates, all candidates, promote, and looking at the ranks and seeing diverse candidates is also heartwarming. So I want to commend the department for that. And went to the My Safe LA Christmas party. I didn't make it to the breakfast. Sorry, everyone. They're like, hey, one less mouth to feed. It was great. And, I went to CAPS. So, Chief Rideout, that's an excellent program. And I would like to also see the data. I talked to the captain there about getting these candidates prepared to enter the drill tower and what the percentage is of the pass failure rate of those who go to CAPS and those who don't. It's a pretty rigorous workout, and also it's educational. So thank you so much. I love that we have the CAPS program. It was excellent. So thanks.
All right, very good. All right, with that, we'll move on to the report of the fire chief.
Thank you, Commissioner. On December 3rd, I went to Fire Station 5 for a press conference to recognize one of our medics, firefighter Daniel Harris. He was in Hawaii, I believe it was in Maui, on vacation with his family, and he happened to be walking by the swimming pool, and a little 3-year-old girl had drowned. And he was able to use his paramedic skills and resuscitate the little girl. The family had intended to come to commission the one we canceled, and we were going to make a presentation here. They flew in from Maui to LAX, so we decided we'll go to Fire Station 5 where firefighter Harris is assigned. And we had a reunification there with the family and Daniel. Daniel had his family come in, and Daniel has some little kids around the same age. So they were reunited in front of the cameras, and there was really a special moment. So the family was very appreciative. Daniel was very proud, and we were very proud of him. On December 5th, like was mentioned previously, I attended the promotional badge ceremony. Approximately 28 people were promoted. As you'll have noted, it is a much smaller number, meaning that we've caught up from previous years. I think our high was around 95 or so at one time to promote at one time. So still a very special ceremony. We don't do it for our members who promote. We do it for the family of our members who promote. The family does a lot to support our members' efforts, and they truly appreciate that. On December 10th, I attended the LA County Holiday Safety Press Conference. That's where we annually burn up a Christmas tree and show how fast trees can burn, and we give our holiday tips. Unfortunately, we're going to have some fires this holiday season that are caused by dry Christmas trees too close to a heat source like a candle or a heater or an electrical short. There's a lot of reasons. So we do that every year, very well attended. On December 14th, we lost one of the legends of the LAFD, Captain John White. I attended his funeral, actually a celebration of life ceremony in Irvine. Had 300-400 people attend. John White is a legend who has touched many people. He was my captain when I was a probationary firefighter at 64s. Very much admired and respected, and it was a beautiful ceremony. And then yesterday, I attended the opening remarks for the IAFF Peer Support Program training being conducted at the UFLAC office. 3-4 years ago, we established as a goal to increase the number of our mental health professionals. Now we have 3, 2 within the department, 1 at UFLAC, and our peer support team has grown. With the completion of this class, we'll have a little bit over 100 peer support people. Our goal there is eventually to get to 300, and we're making progress regularly to get to that number. That concludes my report.
Thank you, and I hope no actual Christmas trees were harmed in that demonstration.
Just one, and it went up fast.
Okay. All right, thank you. I think we have no significant incident reports this week, so we'll move on to a report by the medical director's office.
We do have one from EMS.
Oh, one from EMS. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Chief, City Attorney. Good morning, Isela. I'm Ellsworth Fortman, Assistant Bureau Commander, EMS Bureau. A couple incidents to talk about. On December 11th, FR 91, Engine 91, Rescue 91 responded to a golf course where a 60-year-old male had ridden his bike sat down on a bench, was talking to some people. Shortly thereafter, he fell to the ground, was passed out. He went into cardiac arrest. The witnesses started CPR. They called 911. FR 91 was on scene very quickly, was able to initiate the first shock, take over CPR. Assessment Engine 91 was then on scene, began advanced life support. And by the time that this person was transported to the hospital, about 36 minutes later, he had full breathing and heartbeat on his own. So that was a good save and really a good display of how our fast response vehicles are working and can help out. And on December 3rd, we had Engine 112 and Rescue 36 respond to a 50-year-old male just down on the sidewalk. He was in full cardiac arrest. He was actually agonal breathing when they first got there. Within a minute or so, went into full cardiac arrest. Our members were able to initiate BLS and ALS skills. And again, 34 minutes later, they transported this member to the hospital, having pretty much used all the tools and equipment available to them. 34 minutes later, they get him to the hospital. He's awake, eyes open, breathing on his own. A little combative, but much better state than we found him in. So, and that completes my report.
Thank you. Sounds like great work. All right, I think we're moving ahead to presentations now.
Vice President Glazier, Commissioner Nimberg, Commissioner Hara, Chief Terrazas, City Attorney Ratfish, Ms. Inquinez, good morning. My name is Mike Meza. I'm a Captain 1 at the Firefighter Recruit Section, and it's my honor to recognize these volunteers that you see standing for you today. Today, we would like to recognize the volunteers of the Metro, the Harbor, the Valley, and East Los Angeles Youth Fire Programs. These members are the backbone of our programs, who volunteer their time week in and week out. The volunteers take ownership in teaching the next generation of firefighters and support the mission, vision, and values of the Los Angeles Fire Department. The volunteers serve as instructors and mentor the cadets, taking their past experiences and sharing it for their success. Half of these volunteers are alumni of our youth programs and see the value of service before self. While pursuing their educations, careers, and the hiring process, these volunteers go above and beyond to give their best. They serve in critical positions of our programs in social media, interfacing our literature with the Google Classroom, and grading quizzes and exams on their time off. The volunteers not only teach about our fire programs, they teach about life skills, such as college applications, career, and educational paths. The volunteers serve as positive role models for our cadets. Our volunteers also participate in other programs such as the Girls Camp, Crew 3, the Run to Remember, Spark of Love, and help with the maintenance of our Frank Hotchkiss Memorial Training Center and preparing for events as well. Others are active members of the Centurions, a membership that is committed to service. These volunteers are committed to using their time, treasure, and talents to pay it forward and make each program better. Many are in our department hiring process, looking to become sworn members and to continue their mission of service. Our goal in the youth programs is to develop model citizens. Standing before you today are the model citizens that go above and beyond. In closing, in the words of Russell G. Hayden, these volunteers truly embody the motto of all that I am, I owe. I live eternally in the red. We honor them today for their dedication to our youth fire programs. And so with that, we have a certificate that we've drafted, and the certificate reads, I commend and thank you for your hard work, commitment, and service to the youth fire programs. The citizens of Los Angeles and the members of the Los Angeles Fire Department are fortunate to have dedicated volunteers like you. Dated December 18th, 2018, Ralph M. Terrazas, Fire Chief. And so we would like to just let you know that these are the people that put their time into our future of our service. I'd like to recognize our program coordinators, Al Perez and firefighter Susan Jensen, along with special recognition to Luis Mora, one of our senior advisors who came up with his own initiative to make our programs better.
Thanks, Cap. I think we have our next PIO, Cap Meza. You did a very good job. How many are former pilots? How about Carson Colts? How about Pedro Pirates? One? All right, you got one. Okay. Well, what you see behind me is one of the goals of the fire department. 4 years ago, actually almost 5 now, in the vision statement, we said that to be the optimal fire department, we needed to be metric-driven, technologically sophisticated, community-focused, and reflective of the people that we serve. And behind me, you'll see that these young adults are reflective of the city of Los Angeles. And I'm so proud that we're here to recognize them this morning. All the great work that they do on the various programs. All the 4 academies that were mentioned, the Crew 3, the Girls Camp, maintenance of Hodgkins. These people make it happen. And I'm glad to hear that many of them are currently in the hiring process. This is an excellent way to introduce young people into the Los Angeles Fire Department. And our goal is that we get to hire them. At a minimum, we want to be positive role models so that they can have some people that they can look up to and perhaps emulate. So I congratulate all of you. Hopefully someday in the future we get to pin a badge on you. We'd love to do that. Keep up the great work and Great job. Congratulations. Thank you.
Just briefly, on behalf of the commission, I wanted to just recognize everybody here. Thank you so much for being here. The growing our youth programs and supporting our youth programs has been a real priority for this commission here, and to see you all here is great, and to be able to recognize you for all the work that you've done in helping to build our programs is really great to be able to do today. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all the work you've done. We would not have the thriving youth programs we have without your support, so thank you so much.
Okay, Fallen. Yes, good.
Thank you for what you do. Getting out of your way. Long time no see. Get in there. Get in there, guys. Get in there, young lady.
I had some doubts this was going to work, but I think we just set the bar for the next commission photo. It's going to be interesting to top this. So if you can see me, I can see you. That's my one rule. I think I can see everybody. If you can't, feel free to move forward a little bit. This looks great. Can you see everybody? Yeah, I think we can see everybody, yeah. Did we want anyone holding the cert or just...
This way.
All right, excellent, everybody. Take it on 3. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you. Everybody hang on. Oh, excellent. Everybody on 3, everybody. 1, 2, 3. And a couple more. 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Thank you, Chief Hogan.
Thank you, Chief. Great job. Thank you. Good job. Good job. Good job. Hey, man. Nice to meet you. Sir. Nice to meet you. Sir. How you guys doing? Good. Hey, look at you. You guys looking good. All right. Hey, how you doing? How are you, man? I like that staff shirt you got on. Sir. Great job. Nobody held that like you. Most impressive.
Sir. Great. Thank you, sir.
Same to you. Best to you and the family. You good. Sir, yes, sir. And Gabby, too. Gabby, got it. See you.
All right, thank you, everybody. We're going to go ahead and move forward with the remainder of our agenda. We have our consent items 4A through E. Can I get a motion to approve the recommendations for consent items 4A through E?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. The consent items are approved. Regular agenda item 5A, report by the Department on Fast Response Vehicle and Advanced Provider Response Units update.
Good morning again. I think everybody has the report on the fast response vehicles and the APRUs. Was there any specific questions that you wanted to address? The one part that I can add to this was that since this report, we've added another fast response vehicle, which is FR64. It's only been a couple months, so we don't have any good stats on it or data just yet. However, I can tell you last week in 2 shifts, it ran 35 calls, 2 shifts of 10-hour shifts. So and that's been pretty much the norm with it. It's doing really well.
And what is the on the staffing plans for status on AP82?
AP82, we're currently trying to hire a advanced provider. So it's been closed, although with AP7, we are moving it to 82's district because we found that AP82 ended up, when it was staffed, was very busy. It was very useful there. AP7, because there's not very many alternate destinations in the valley, that they're really not having the same type of effect currently. There may be in the future, but currently they're not having that same effect that we want. So we're going to move them to 82's. But once we do hire that other advanced provider, we'll have them all open.
So is 80? So it has been moved, or is going to be moved?
It's going to be moved.
Okay. On the APRUs on the last page, you kind of go into the number of shifts. So we've got 15 is 61, 58 is 35. And so that's because this is a year-to-date from January through, what was the date on that?
I think it was October 1st.
October? So I'm just curious why the shift differentials are. I get that 15 has been around for longer, but why are the shift numbers?
So the number of shifts that they're available varies due to, so AP82 we discussed, it was open. We had an issue with our advanced provider that
closed, yeah.
we ended up closing that. With AP7, that was the last one to be staffed. And then right now we have Terrence Ito on that. Terrence Ito is actually the supervisor of the advanced providers. So he's on it, yet he's also building the training programs and meeting with us. So a lot of the time for AP7 is spent down here at headquarters, preparing and training, conducting classes and things like that. So the variance is there. And then the other variable is that these are not constant staffing rigs. So what happens is that if one of the members is off, especially if it's an advanced provider, we really can't staff it that day. So normal vacations, sick days, anything like that.
And 58 is staffed?
Yes.
Okay. So first, these are great metrics. Thank you for providing the metrics. Exactly what I wanted to see. I think that's really great. I think there's a lot of information sort of within the metrics that's probably worth further discussion about. You mentioned, like, as we start to put these resources into use, we start to learn about different pieces in the system. So we plug one hole, and then you realize that we've actually got another hole over there. So I'm interested to learn more about how we start to, as we kind of go down this innovative path, we end up generating more questions often than answers, which is expected and as it should be. That we're sort of learning more about the system. With AP7, any thoughts on how we can actually start to address the issue of not having alternative destinations there, or not? I presume for mental health that may be an issue out there as well.
It is, but I think we're working with some of the different hospitals to have alternative destinations opened up, or ones that we can get approved to bring them to. Mm-hmm. And then one of the things we are doing in the Valley, though, is the patient follow-up care. So when the hospitals provide the money to pay for the APs, the advanced provider portion of this for the first year, one of the things, really the only thing they really wanted out of it was those kind of higher acuity patients that are released from the hospital, that we do a follow-up on those patients. Yep. It benefits the hospital, benefits us from not going back out with an ambulance, transporting them back to the emergency room. So there is a lot of follow-up, and that's the majority of the work that's done in the Valley with AP7. So, and we hope to get those. And I think a lot of the part of this, too, is that we have 100% QI on these. We do complete follow-up on each and every one. We have monthly meetings. So we are learning. This is new. We're learning as we're going. And as we learn more, then we can develop more data so that we can look at the way that we need to tweak this to make it work.
Okay,
better.
cool. The follow-up stuff is really interesting. I would be interested to see a goal around the follow-up if that is part of what they're doing. And this is mostly a responsive goal rather than a proactive goal. I know one of the things when we originally talked about the idea was actually trying to address super users. I would be interested to see a goal here related to the hospital follow-up and how that, if there's a way to quantify what the reduction is on our burden as a result of following up there, because I'm sure there is. If we're following up with them proactively and then they're not calling us because they need X, Y, and Z. So that to me sounds like a success story that I don't see being told in the numbers that you have here.
We just set up a separate APRU email, which is where the hospitals can send us the information to follow up on patients. So we're just starting to really capture that data. I think the tough part's going to be is, would that patient have called 911 for a ride to the hospital? That's going to be the toughest part to really quantify, but we'll certainly have the data on, we followed up with these patients and here's what we did for them. And if we made a doctor's appointment for them, got them a different type of ride to the doctor's appointment or where they needed to go, that might be the part that we're able to look at and quantify.
Yeah, I mean, even if we're starting with the numbers served, that we're actually seeing this number of patient contacts, at some point we may be sort of be able to impute what the impact of that is. But this question of the super users, if we do have folks who are, well, they're running slow or not, but even if we were to say, look, we have our top 50 people who are calling. And this is something we've seen in other jurisdictions, I think, where we're saying, okay, we're going to see if we can proactively knock that person off of the super user list by connecting them with services or, that would be another interesting metric to look at to see if we've got people who are calling 3 times a day or once a day or even once a week, how are we keeping track of those individuals and how we potentially are impacting them through the use of the AP? Because it seems like even if you had, if there was in each service area that we're operating, if there's one person who's calling every day or 3 times a day, you actually could make a dent in call load there by addressing that. So I would like for you guys to look at how we are keeping track of that application of this. And I understand that can't be the only job, right? I think initially we talked about it's like, oh yeah, this is what we're going to do is address super users, and it's evolved over time. Again, totally appropriate, given what we're doing. But I don't want to lose sight of that potential purpose of our APs to get out there and proactively address the folks who may be calling us with high frequency. So if you could think about how you want to quantify that for the next report, that would be great.
Yeah, we absolutely will. And that's something we have looked at doing and working with the geographical bureaus to give us their super users and then start having us go out. And that's just part of their kind of non-emergency functions is to hit the super users.
It's
and
like fire prevention for, a normal fire company. So I want to return just to the staffing issue, which is I remain concerned about the staffing and the number of shifts that we're running with these things. We can't prove the model out in the way that I think we would all like to if we're not running at at capacity. That just is an ongoing concern that we've got to figure out how to address as a department is how do we attract and retain our APs, and I don't know how much this spills over into the paramedics who are the partners in there. It may or may not. I don't know the answer, but something. I mean, we're going to have a hard time for getting this to stick and expand if we can't fill the slots we've got.
Commissioner, if I could speak to that one, We are currently discussing with labor a pilot of a 312 schedule. It'd be 312. It'd be 312 week 1, and then 312 week 2 with an 8 to give us 80 hours over a 2-week period. We're also, and we believe that'll be attractive to sworn and the AP.
Great.
We're also working with the CAO to look at salary, to adjust the AP salary. So we share your same concern about sustainability. We're learning every year. We're tweaking it, making it better. Labor, UFLAC is interested in the time schedule change. I want to work towards a letter of agreement. And if it works for the pilot, we want to expand it to the fleet. So that's to your concern about sustainability.
Okay.
One other point about in the proposed budget for 1920, I want to get 24-hour staffing for FRV 9 and 64. The goal there eventually is to get one of these FRVs per bureau. They would be TEMS medics, tactical EMS. They would be certified to fly the drones. In the world we live in today with active shooters, we never know when that's going to occur. And our TEMS medics are the ones that integrate with SWAT. So we believe that's a good model for sustainability, and it addresses our concern about after-hours incidents as it currently sits. So that's what we're doing there. We're also looking at slightly increasing the APRUs. We're calling that a different model. I think it's the ADU. Is that what we decided on? Alternative Destination Unit Response. So we've been allowed to pilot a program where 2 paramedics with additional training can take a patient to an alternative destination rather than the emergency room.
Great.
So we're moving on a lot of fronts simultaneously, with the end goal to have a very sustainable, successful, metric-driven program.
Good. That all sounds like really good progress. The FRVs, certainly I'm very supportive of the 24 hours in those areas. I would encourage you to think about the 12 hours in the others, just because it's maybe the 410s are good, but it seems like we have staffing issues on the 410s as well. But all I go back to is these are valuable resources that I think are implementing a future state model for us that I think is the right direction. We're going in the right direction. I want us to be in with 2 feet and not 1 foot. And it feels like when they're understaffed because of scheduling issues that we're in with 1 foot.
That's a good point. If I could comment to that, in Chief Poyer's shop, we're working on a regular basis to adjust the hours, and we look at a 410. If we change that to a 312, we actually increase the number of days because people are more interested in working the 12s, and we increase the number of hours, which captures the peak call load in the early evening. And when you look at the comparison, we lose 1 day at 10, but it's inconsistent staffing. So we are actually doing that now with FRV 64. That's a 3 days a week, 12 hours a day unit.
And it sounds like it's been successful there.
Well, they're running 35 calls in the last 2 shifts, so I think it's very, very successful.
Great. Good. Sooner the better, I say. on that stuff, I think it's that's all the right direction of saying, how do we increase our flexibility and our ability to respond more nimbly, and that sounds like that's the right move. So I applaud that move, and I'm glad to hear it. I certainly also am very supportive of the idea of one of these in every battalion. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. It gives us just a tremendous amount of flexibility and the ability to respond. So I'm glad to hear that is what's going on. We had talked a while ago about an AP coming to dispatch. Is that also on hold?
Not on hold. We're trying to hire still, and again, like the chief said, one of the biggest things is that salary is attracting the right people.
Okay.
And so, but we are still working on those hires would be included with folks that we're trying to attract right now for interviews.
Yeah. If I had $1 for every firefighter who said, why can't we have a no-send category, we could probably pay for the AP who would help with a safe no-send category. So we could raise money that way, perhaps out in the department.
Possibly.
to pay for that additional salary. Okay, thank you. This is great. Last thing is I am still really interested to see how, now that we've got this under our belt and we're doing this and we have our CAD data with the GPS, what am I trying to say? The AVL data, how that is impacting our wall times. So I would love for that to be something we can hear again. It's been a couple of years since we've heard about wall time, and I know that one of the things that was a question mark was how AVL was going to drive wall time, because we were going to get actually a much more accurate metric of that. And then looking at the FRVs and the alternate destinations, so we have some trend lines there to look at. So if I could ask that be something that you come back with in the next 4 months, so we can actually look at where we are with wall time and any kind of progress. So that would be great.
Yeah, we can do that with AVL in addition to what we project out that the AP units are saving from wall time by not having people transport.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm interested to see how all that looks. I think that also becomes a driver for more of this, if it's really impacting our wall time, response time, and ultimately service to the public. So thank you for this, and I look forward to more good work.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Actually, a comment I make, I'm so happy that 64 now is going to be involved again, because they were quite busy, if I recall, before shifting over to 15, and it sounds like they're already very busy again. So to that extent, I'm pleased that 64, which my understanding is it's one of the busiest stations of all, does have a FRV again.
Thank you. All right. If there is no further comment, I will entertain a motion to adopt the recommendation for item 5A.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We are moving forward to item 5B, report by the Department on Domestic Violence, Human Trafficking Action Plan updates.
Good morning, Vice President Glazier, Commissioners, Chief Terrazas, City Attorney Rafish, and Acela. My name is Linda Sesser. I'm recently have been assigned as the Department Liaison for Domestic Violence and Human Trafficking issues for the Department. And so I just wanted to kind of just give you a little bit of, very, very quickly, a history on where we're at with this report. So on March 21st, 2017, the Department submitted its initial domestic violence action report dealing with domestic violence and human trafficking in Los Angeles. On July 3rd of this year, you were provided with the first update, which was Board Report 1853. And so this report is actually sort of an update to the last update. And it pretty much currently addresses specific items that weren't originally, were still continuing or hadn't been addressed in the original reports. So these goals are itemized on page 1 and 2, items 1 through 6. And so basically in the document itself, I just kind of wanted to highlight 2 specific areas as opposed to going through the whole document. The first one is updated enhanced training, and it's item number 3. So as we move forward into 2019, the department has spent extensive discussions about training and the importance of updating that training, not having just regular training that we're doing every year. And so basically that's where we'll be going in 2019. We've been doing the human trafficking training started in 2017, so this year we'll be going into our 3rd year. And so that's where the significance of actually changing that training in the form that we're currently using to provide not only recent updates, any changes in the law, but also just to keep basically the training fresh so members are still remain interested, and it emphasizes the importance of it. So that's what we'll be doing this year. We'll be doing this by utilizing our current partnerships, and those partnerships are the Los Angeles City Domestic Violence Alliance, the Los Angeles Police Department, the Mayor's Coalition of DV Liaisons, and Rainbow Services. The second item I kind of wanted to highlight, which is a concern for the department. So basically, if you'll notice on page 2, there's a decrease in the reporting by department members of domestic violence. So one of the things that was addressed in the previous report was that we actually created ways to have members actually do the reporting. Initially, it started out as they had to actually complete some type of form. And then to simplify that process, we actually added domestic violence, human trafficking to the EPCR. So when a member actually goes on a suspected incident, they can just click the little drop down. It provides them resources. It also allows the department to recognize and identify the number of incidents that we're actually responding to. There also was a program that was initiated, so instead of actually writing a 225, the members could now go into the computer. They could just answer a few brief questions about the incident they were on. That would allow the department to also know what type of incident was and what was happening, kind of a backup, if you will, to the EPCR. But what we did note is that in 2017 we had 115 suspected DV incidents, and then we had 10 suspected human trafficking incidents. But this year we noted, as of November 1st of this year, we only had 10 suspected incidents of DV and 3 suspected incidents of human trafficking. And so this is something the department's looking at. I think it speaks to probably one of the main importances of why we need to update the training and provide it regularly, is to keep it, in the forefront of members' minds. And so they're still, acknowledging and looking at that and actually identifying the incidents that they're going on. And so that's something to address this. The department will be reviewing the measures under line item 2 and 4. And we'll be reviewing those to just ensure that not only are those requirements being addressed, that that the members are documenting domestic violence and human trafficking cases, but that that there is consistent messaging, and it's being promulgated through the EMS battalion captains, through the EMS training unit, and through the ongoing training we currently have, and as we move into 2019 and into the future. So with that, if you have any questions or anything that I can address for you, that would.
Yes, thank you so much for the report. And this is it's a great thing that the department is finally, doing domestic violence and human trafficking training. I think that the first year was hopeful. We got to see some good numbers initially, and I do appreciate the department coming here and kind of saying, hey, you know what, look, we've had a steep decline. It's interesting. I looked online yesterday on lapd.org. It says nearly 1/3 of the women who seek care from hospital emergency rooms are there for injuries resulting from domestic violence. So that comes from our police department. And if we're only identifying 10, that concerns me, especially when there's over 47,000 that are referred to PD, that are identified through PD. I think that, and same with human trafficking. What I would like to do is piggyback, and you have already identified this, so I just want to say that just really stress the importance of continuing this training. I'd like to see it live. I felt like that the efficacy of that was really, really promising, especially at MFC. I know, and then with the chiefs as well. I think that the Target Solutions, I think it's a 20-minute video, maybe how long? I don't know.
Excuse me, Commissioner. Yes, it's actually a 3-hour training. It has 6
great.
separate little videos, but it covers both human trafficking and domestic violence. Okay. So there are 6 smaller little vignette type videos, 2 PowerPoints, and it's a total of a 3-hour training that's currently available.
No, and that I appreciate. Thank you for the correction. I just think that we just have to look and see what's working, what's not, because what we do have as the fire department, as opposed to the police department, is you have access. You have access to victims that would not otherwise come forward. Specifically, human trafficking victims. They will never, even the LAFD badge is a little bit intimidating. However, we do have this incredible opportunity that I think that to make these saves, and these are our most vulnerable members of society here in our community. Some of our most vulnerable members, certainly human trafficking victims, because we are the hub of child sex trafficking in the United States. And that's a sad, tragic mantle that LA holds. And I think especially, so I would like to see that. I'd like to see a quarterly report of domestic violence come to commission. You're welcome. I think, really just tracking this regularly. I think you mentioned another bulletin, just keeping it fresh in people's minds. It's not familiar, so thanks.
Commissioner, we completely concur. We started off with live training, and our past model was to do live training 1 year, the following year do online, and then go back to live. We can see that the effectiveness is reduced when we go from 115 to 10. We will track it. We'll come back quarterly, report to this body. We'll start tracking it at our weekly Bureau Commander meetings. I have standing data requests to track certain things. We'll also put out the bulletin that Chief Sester mentioned, And then the EMS captains, too, can reinforce it out there in the field. We learned through FireStat that as soon as you pay attention to a metric, it will improve because we're watching. And these topics are so sensitive and so important, and the victims are so defenseless that we can do better, and we will.
I appreciate it.
I've met with a number of leaders of the Korean community because apparently Koreatown is the hub of human trafficking here in the LA area, and apparently the victims of human trafficking, who become sex workers, are typically aged 10 to 13, and so. And a lot of times it's clusters of up to 30 to 50 girls who are the victims of human trafficking, in our very city. So I think it's important that we are engaged in this whole process of identifying situations where that's a possibility.
Right. Agreed. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to approve the recommendation for item 5B.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved. All right, we're now on item 5C, which is the report by the Department of LAFD Fleet Metrics Update.
Good morning, Commissioners, Chief Terrazas, City Attorney Hasello, and the audience. Just want to say to begin with how much I appreciate the Commission's interest in the fire department fleet. And a year ago, when I last presented here with Chief White, we were requested to provide some metrics related to how long the department fleet is in service. And as I thought about the significance of that metric, I realized it's more than just reporting to the Commission how old the fleet is. What I discovered in my analysis is a more effective gauge of how long vehicles are in service emphasizes exactly how long they are in service, meaning how long they're available. And at the fleet maintenance, in the fleet maintenance section, we track the availability of apparatus, meaning that it's in service. Whether or not it's being used, it has to be available. And so I developed a matrix called the Fleet Availability Index, which is an amalgam of several different metrics that are all relevant to the question how long vehicles are in service. And in the report that I presented through channels, and I trust you have copies of it, I listed some specific fleet maintenance metrics that are relevant to the maintenance section. There are lots of fleet maintenance metrics, or I should say fleet metrics, that are relevant to different parts of our department. There are fleet financial metrics. There are fleet operational metrics. But it's the fleet maintenance metrics that primarily impact the availability of the fleet and how long it's in service. We track the backlog. That is the number of repairs that are in queue. It's an indication of our overall workload at any given time. It consists of pending repairs that are non-mission critical. Mission critical repairs have to be addressed immediately. And I can report that every vehicle in service today is safe and reliable. But the key there is every vehicle that's in service. Today there are, I believe, 28 triples that are out of service, meaning that they're broke down, they're at the shop. And we have similar values for other components, parts of our fleet, number of ambulances that are out of service, the number of Suburbans that are out of service, and so on. But that doesn't tell us exactly enough about how long the vehicles are in service. I started looking at not just how long vehicles are in service, but how often they're out of service. And what we came up with is that in the life of a vehicle in the department fleet, it has a number of days that it is in service and a number of days out of service. And the Fleet Availability Index is the percentage of time available versus time unavailable. We can take that metric and we can apply it to the entire fleet, and our target is 95%, meaning 95% of the time our fleet should be available. It should be in service, whether it's a new vehicle or an old vehicle. But we can apply that metric to parts of our fleet as well. If the chief wants to know what is our most reliable brand of ambulance, we can track the availability of that particular group of vehicles. It's a very helpful metric for us to gauge not only our effectiveness at keeping the vehicles in service, but how reliable they are. Other metrics that we track have to do with whether or not we're on target with performing preventive maintenance service, smog tests, scheduled repairs, how many unscheduled repairs we do. All of these things contribute to how long a vehicle is in service. If we do preventive maintenance service on time, there's a direct correlation to how reliable and available that vehicle is. If we fail to do scheduled repairs, we see it in those vehicles breaking down, which increases the number of days that they're out of service. Unscheduled repairs are a direct result of failing to be able to perform scheduled preventive maintenance. And I'm pleased to report that we're 95% on target and on time with our preventive maintenance program, because we have a very robust calendar for heavy apparatus, ambulances, and light vehicles. Going down the list of relevant metrics, we have repair turnover rate. That directly speaks to our effectiveness and our productivity. It gives us insight on how well our workforce is performing. And our target is as short as time as possible to repair a vehicle. Sadly, we don't have enough data in our fleet metrics, fleet maintenance information management system to be able to differentiate more as clearly as we need to how long a repair takes. We can track how many labor hours are applied to a repair, but the time out of service right now is based on when the vehicle is brought to the shop. There's a lot of admin time, there's a lot of downtime, there's a lot of time waiting for parts. That's not necessarily because the mechanics aren't working on it that it's out of service, but all these administrative things that we have to deal with as well. But we can, with the implementation of our new fleet information management system called M5, we're going to be able to track with more specifics the reason for delays in the repair process. Staffing. When we're understaffed, there's a direct correlation in how long vehicles remain out of service. Today, we're at 91% of our staffing. We have 4 mechanic vacancies still to fill, and we have interviews that we'll be conducting next month. I believe that we will be at 100% staffing within the next 2 months at supply and maintenance. That's the first time that we would be at 100% staffing in probably 8 years. So that is a tremendous accomplishment. Vehicle downtime. Vehicles down, actually I shouldn't say vehicle downtime, but the number of vehicles down. Vehicles down is based on the number of vehicles that are out of service for repair at any given time. We track that with what we call a daily progress report. I can bring it up on my phone. Many of you may receive it as an email already, but it tells us how many reserve vehicles of each type do we have. Our target is to never be below 50%, but sadly we're below that target. We're below that target because some of our reserve vehicles were moved from the ready reserve fleet into, or from the regular reserve fleet into the ready reserve fleet. Those vehicles that are now ready reserves, they're not available for changeover when a vehicle breaks down. So that's really challenged us to provide spare vehicles for the regular fleet. We have 200 triples in the department fleet. There was a time when we had 50 reserve triples to support that frontline fleet of 200. And then we added 20 some odd ready reserves to the fleet. Now we're supporting like 220 regular vehicles with less reserves. It's a challenge. But we do track that, and we are a little bit below target. Comeback rate, very important. When we repair a vehicle, it shouldn't come back for that same repair. If it does, it increases the amount of time that vehicle's been out of service. Technician productivity. All of these affect how long a vehicle is available. But one thing today that I'm very concerned about, and that is our auto parts fill rate. We're challenged to have the auto parts that we need in our storeroom so that when the mechanic has a repair to make, he can walk up to that counter and get the part that he needs. Best-in-class fleets would try to have 90% fill rate from their inventory. It's unrealistic to think that the fire department fleet would be able to attain a 90% fill rate because our vehicles are custom built, custom made, and we are challenged by our vendors and our manufacturers to timely deliver parts in many cases. Plus, the fleet is so varied. Unlike LAPD, which they have a fleet that is much more consistent and uniform, ours is significantly more diverse. We wouldn't have the warehouse space to be able to store the potential for every part we might need. So we do rely on our vendors. One of the things that we have implemented, though, and that is identifying high-use parts that we're challenged to get from our storeroom and staging those in the shop area, ready for the mechanic to use to increase uptime, but also for operational readiness. Because of the challenges in our parts room, we have determined that we need to have these parts available for just any contingency that might occur so we can continue repairing vehicles in a major disaster. All of these different metrics combine to give me a percentage of the availability of the fleet. Our target is 95% fleet-wide. When I ran this data in September of 2018, our ambulance availability is currently only at 76%. Now, I want to make it clear, that doesn't mean that a fourth of our ambulance fleet isn't responding. We have all the ambulances operating in the department today that we need. But of all the ambulances in the fleet, collectively, only 76% of the time are they operating. The other 24% of the time, they're in the shop. Triples are at 88%, aerials are at 82%, emergency sedans are at 83.9%. Brush patrols, they're at 97%, and I'll tell you why. The brush patrols are generally built on an OEM chassis like Ford or Dodge or Chevy. They're not as custom built. They may have a custom built fire pump on them or a custom built body, but the engine, the transmission, the chassis, they are patterned after the same vehicles that are running down the highways of America everywhere in the country. Great parts support, great service information. We're challenged, though, when we have custom-built apparatus. That's what we do, and we see it in how quickly we can make repairs and get vehicles back in service. I'd like to just conclude by saying that when these kinds of exercises are conducted at the shops, we learn from them. These are great management tools. I appreciate that my chain of command, the Fire Commission, that you're interested in our performance. But it's more than just a report card for us. My team, Guy Patnode, the Chief White, we see these things and we do see areas to improve. And we're fortunate that as we develop the new M5 fleet maintenance information management system, we're going to be able to incorporate some of these different metrics into that new program. And I hope in the future, when we're asked to provide information about the fleet, it'll be more readily available and more complete. I'm open to any questions or follow-up or requests.
Great. Thank you so much for the completeness of your report. So I asked for this back a while ago. I think when I originally wanted the report, I was most interested in the downtime. I think it got translated a little bit funny, so I'm glad you figured out what I really wanted to know and came back with that. So thank you for that. In my course of my ride-alongs this year, I think I probably, of the, let's say, the 10 that I was able to do this year, I think half of them I rode in like a 96 triple with the stick shift. Yep. So I was asked the question of like, why are I had no idea we had this many stick shifts left in the department. But it was the kind of the same story of, well, our triple went out and it's been out, 6 to 11 months. And I think partly, as everybody knows who works here, in a department of 3,000 people, rumors get started. And so that led me to wonder what's actually going on. And so that's what led to the question for the report. The most consistent piece I heard was a parts shortage. And I heard you validate that there is a parts issue in terms of how long it takes to get parts. Now, the rumors behind that were that the city doesn't pay its bills, or that we're actually we're stripping one triple to put parts on another. I don't know if any of that's true or not. I presume it's a more mundane issue of just parts coming in.
Well, there are the very things that you mentioned are absolutely affecting us. We have vendors. I can give you an example. I won't name the vendor, but we have one vendor that will not even sell to us using a purchasing card because the city has not paid an outstanding invoice. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, it's not a fire department invoice. The contracts can be in place for other departments, general services, LAPD. If there's a breakdown in the payment processing of an invoice,
anywhere in the city.
Anywhere in the city, it absolutely can impact our ability to buy the part from that contract vendor. Uh-huh. When that happens, we're fortunate that we've got purchasing cards in the maintenance section, and we use them responsibly and quickly if we need to.
Yeah.
But what do we do when a vendor refuses to sell it? And a proprietary part, by the way, they won't sell it because they haven't been paid. Yes, we will take a part from another vehicle. Mm-hmm. But long term, what we're doing is we're anticipating those kinds of occasions where, for whatever reason, we cannot obtain a part from a supplier. And that's why we're utilizing our storekeepers in the maintenance section to stage parts readily available for our mechanics. Prima 2000 has established that supply services of the Department of General Services, they are the procurement arm of the city. We procure all of our parts through them. But what we're doing is we're charging those parts out and we're staging them in preparation for use and emergencies that we anticipate.
Okay, so if we're thinking about what the biggest impediment is here to getting stuff fixed, is part shortage the number one issue that prevents timely repairs?
Yes, it is. The vehicles themselves are very complicated. They're very complex.
Sure.
Vendors sometimes are unable to provide the parts, but internally within the fire department, within supply services, we need more inventory on hand at our warehouse. That's the bottom line. When we need our mechanics to be able to go to the parts counter, request the part, and have it issued to them. When the part isn't issued to them, then we have to find some other way to get it. And we do, using a purchasing card, taking it off of another vehicle. That's very time consuming.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it can directly impact a vehicle going in service. Engine 70, I'll give you an example. One of the emission components on that vehicle failed, and the vehicle has been out of service for 6 weeks. It's about a 30-minute repair to get that vehicle back in service, but it's not a stock item in the GSD warehouse. The vendor that we buy from does not stock it, and the OEM that manufactures that part for KME won't sell it to us directly. KME doesn't stock it, and they said it was a 6-week lead time. 6 weeks for a part that renders one of our vehicles out of service is unacceptable in my opinion. So we need that part to be able to be stocked in the GSD warehouse. And when the maintenance section requests a stock item, we need that item filled. And we're challenged in being able to see that accomplished.
Yeah, so it sounds like we've got two kinds of parts problems. We've got parts problems that are somewhat out of our control in that it's we can't control who the OEM sells to and that the vendor's out. And then we have the parts issues that are in our control, which is really, I'm going to call them unforced administrative errors, right? Which are not necessarily your administrative errors, but somewhere it is something that is within the city's control to either pay a bill or anticipate a part or whatever it is. I would say if that's something that is arises above your pay grade in terms of you're not the one not paying the bill, given the impact that I have seen firsthand this have on our ability to respond, I would encourage this to be something that gets elevated to a higher level to try to see if we can figure out a way to coordinate better to make sure that we get the vendors paid so we don't have emergency apparatus sitting. I imagine there are cases when it's a 30-minute repair and a $20 part and we can't get it because of some sort of unforced error there. And so now we have literally $1 waiting on a dime.
Yes.
So with real world consequences, no less, because if we're riding on older rigs, although they may be safe, they may not be up to the standards that we have today, or they may be more prone to breakdowns, or they're just running, because they are.
Right.
So that to me seems like something that is worth a prioritization at the higher levels of the department to see if we can get the cooperation we need.
Can I weigh in, Commissioner? First of all, Mr. Clark, great report. Excellent management tools. The shops, they do an amazing job. Our fleet is, what's the total number of apparatus when you add everything up?
1,250.
1,250 apparatus. Some of the I want to talk about the positives and then talk about what we're thinking about to address the parts issue. Number one, and Mark said it, is our staffing level is at an all-time high in 8 years. In fact, we've been willing or ready to hire. The applicants haven't met our qualifications sometimes. So we don't want to hire people that are not qualified, so we had to pass on that group of heavy mechanics. So that's a positive. In 2 months, we'll be fully staffed. Our MICLA purchases have been increasing every year. There was a few years, starting in fiscal year 10-11, where we got $0 to buy new apparatus. The newer the apparatus, the less likely they're going to go out of service because it's a newer piece of equipment. Sometimes it's under warranty. This current fiscal year, we got about $24.5 million of MICLA plus a helicopter on top of that. So we did very well. Those apparatus are in the pipeline. Now, specific to the parts, we chronically are underfunded for parts, and we have been in my tenure as a fire chief every year since I've been here. And we continually ask for increases in that line item. I will continue to ask, and now I have more management data to take with me to those discussions, because I do think it's what Mark said, that we need to have a standing supply of components that regularly need replacement. And we can avoid the delay that he described to us, because we'll have parts that more than likely wear out as compared to others. So that's our plan going to the next budget year request. We typically will augment our parts line item through the fiscal year, and we'll do that again probably in February or March. We'll take from one account to bring it over to the parts account. So we need to try to figure out that solution so that it's fixed once and for all. And these tools will help me make that argument.
Great. Yeah.
Wade White, Commander, Supply and Maintenance Division. I'd just like to address your topic in regards to the auto parts and raising it to a higher level. And we're in working with our city partner, General Services Department, what we've done at basically our level is tried to meet with them on a regular basis. They've been very cooperative with that in trying to solve a lot of these issues that we're having regarding administrative issues with the parts. So let us give that an opportunity to pan out, and then if we get to a point where we've got to take it up to a higher level, we'll do that. But we want to work with our city partners there, and it seems to be working out pretty well as far as the relationship. Let's see if we get them to produce.
Yeah, I mean, as my interest is that there is some cross-departmental collaboration happening that's going to move. And, I know this came to a head a little bit when we were talking about helicopter repairs a while back. So that got the attention of a different legislative body in the city. So, I'm hopeful that will have trickle-down effects to things like our parts for triples and ambulances and things like that, and aerials. I am curious about the reserve question as well, because this is not something that I have ever fully understood. What is the difference between a ready reserve and a reserve?
A ready reserve would be, for example, a fire engine, a pumper, that is outfitted with hose, fittings, and the complement of equipment, except for a life pack and some of the higher dollar assets on that apparatus, radios. And that's a vehicle that can be put in service at a moment's notice for a high hazard day.
These are the 400 series?
That's the 400 series,
okay.
Yes, sir. And what we've done is we've actually reduced the ready reserve fleet. EOPS has assisted us in that, reducing that fleet to be able to put those ready reserve apparatus back into the actual reserve fleet, so companies can change over for long term as a fleet maintenance section does their work.
And as the influx of our new triples, are those Pierces that are coming in?
We've got Pierces coming in, sir.
And is that how do you expect that to impact? I mean, presumably it's a positive impact because you have new stuff that should not break.
Right. It has a lot of positives. The complexity of apparatus now takes us into a whole new arena in regards to technician level training and time on the apparatus. But it puts us into a warranty cycle. It puts us into a cycle of being able to get parts that are not obsolete anymore for our apparatus that are 20 plus years old. So it has a lot of positives.
And so do you see us retiring out some of our oldest then as a result of the new stuff coming in, or if that stuff works fine, we just put that on the reserve?
Actually, when a new vehicle comes into the fleet, a piece of apparatus is salvaged. So we stay at a constant level. Unless, of course, there's operational need in regards to bringing on new units, such as the advanced providers or any type of vehicle like that, then we'll increase the fleet slightly. And
so with the increase of the new triples, will that allow us to actually grow our reserve levels a little bit then, rather than salvaging out one for one? Yes, incrementally it'll allow us to take apparatus that might have been out of service with a blown engine or a transmission that would not be cost effective to put that money into that apparatus. We can go ahead and we can salvage that apparatus. And as far as why vehicles go out of service. Do you guys track? I think that may have been one of the things, the sort of the reason whether it's a mechanical issue versus a accident. Say,
I'm gonna let you address that.
Yeah.
We do track that. We track it at the work order level. When a vehicle comes in for repair, we assign a code to its repair order. If it's a vehicle accident, it's coded as an accident. If it is a general automotive type repair, it's coded as a changeover or a preventive maintenance. So yes, we do have the data streams to differentiate between an accident versus a mechanical breakdown. The system that we record all that information in, it's 30 years old. It's an old mainframe sort of database. There's not enough robust reporting in it to really be able to drill down.
So the M5 system should help you with that.
Absolutely, it will.
It would be interesting to see if we're seeing trends in, increases or decreases in one cause of things being out of service versus another. That has implications, I think, for just general.
For fleet design, what we buy, yes.
Right, and management. If we've seen an increase in accidents, maybe we need some driver training, but or not, right? Whatever that might be, or if it is, we see something's particularly accident prone. That I imagine that or mechanical prone, that helps you know which parts to get in advance.
Yes,
presumably. What is we of late we send a lot of assignments out of city on strike teams. What impact does that have on our fleet?
Well, when vehicles leave the city, the reserve fleet is sometimes put in service. The ready reserve fleet goes into service. But from a maintenance standpoint, when those vehicles come back, we see a significant uptake in maintenance that is required. We also see breakdowns that occur when the vehicles are out of town. Normally, they're part of a strike team, and they're assigned to a fire. Maybe it's Cal OES or someone like that, or the Forest Service. They'll host the fire, and they'll be responsible for affecting any repairs. But we do encounter parts purchases frequently when vehicles are out of town, where we'll have to coordinate buying batteries or coolant or a tire or something like that. And we've done that when vehicles are in Redding, California. We've done that when vehicles are on their way to Florida with a FEMA strike team or something like that. So there is an impact. We have procedures in place to support the fleet. And in the past, we would sometimes send a field mechanic. There's a compensation issue sometimes with overtime. But we've adapted. We sent a field mechanic to Redding on an in-and-out repair. He took the part up, effected the repair, and came right back. Got the vehicle back in service and avoided a tow all the way from Northern California back to L.A. Plus, it allowed the vehicle to stay in service for the rest of its deployment. So,
I wonder, given the uptick from a fleet design standpoint, if this is our new normal, where we're deploying more and more people out, if it makes sense for us to think about acquiring more of the Type 3s, which seem like they may be better designed for those sorts of deployments. Is that the true or not true?
Commissioner, I would defer to Chief White or Chief Terrazas. When it's the operational use of the equipment, that's out of my expertise. We support the department's operations. So if
more from a repair standpoint, I wonder if those Type 3s see less repairs coming back from, or if it's the same.
The Type 3s seem well suited for their vocation, how they're being used. We have some challenges with the warranty repairs on them, but there are vendors in the area that we use. I believe they're a mechanically sound and effective vehicle for the fleet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Given the new M5 system, which I'm sure you're very excited about, and I'm strangely excited about it for you, it sounds like it's going to be a really good tool for you guys in terms of collecting the data and managing the fleet in different ways. I would be interested to hear back. I think this question of downtime is one that seems to have risen to a higher level of concern over the past couple of years, or maybe it's just I'm just hearing about it more. So I'm interested to hear back from you guys a little more than annually on it. So maybe we could do a 6-month report back as you get the more data in, just to talk about the downtime and how that's going and how things are going with parts there, just to make sure that that is going in the right direction. And then also, I think, this is a great report. I think the reports that you guys do, I would love to see them come before the budget, because I think that sometimes the information you have may help us think a little bit about what's in the budget relative to the shops and fleet maintenance, to make sure that we are properly resourced. And I know that I'm sure you all have your conversations and you make your decisions about that. I think from the commission standpoint, I think we are really interested in fleet maintenance, and this is one of those hidden components of the fire department that is sort of not seen or heard too much, but has a very, very important impact on our readiness and our ability to do our jobs. And when I say our, I mean the department, not so much our jobs. So I'm certainly interested to hear one a little more frequently, not a lot more frequently, but just, maybe every 6 months about it, but also to try to time the reports that come in prior to the budget conversation. So let's say August rather than November, so that we just have a little bit of insight as we go into that budget to say, like, hey, maybe this should be a little bit of a higher priority than we've got here. I think it's really easy to try to push it down, because I think fleet maintenance is like any kind of maintenance. It's kind of like termites, where, you can sort of put it off for a while, but at some point your house falls down. And I certainly don't want to be in that situation here, and I know you wouldn't let it get there. So certainly not questioning the attention that you're paying to this, but I think it's helpful to try to surface some of these issues, just because I think that when they get a little bit of attention, it's good, and it, as I said, it is something that does come up out in the field, which maybe that's a good thing, because maybe there's other bigger issues that have been solved, and so now they can focus on how often their rig is out of service. But I think it's something worth talking about a little bit more. Thank you both for your hard work. I appreciate the analytical approach you have here, and I look forward to seeing how your data set continues to evolve in the near future. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the recommendation for item 5C?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, do we have any motion passes? Do we have any other public comment for today? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah,
Make a motion. Move to adjourn,
Second.
please.
It's like it's our first meeting. Motion passes. We are adjourned.